Welcome, this is Sharon McNeil for South Seattle College for my painting class. This is a demonstration for our third painting in class. And this time we're doing a theme, and this theme is a garden theme since it's springtime. It kind of makes sense. So what I'm gonna do is gesture out what I'm seeing here, and it's basically, I wanna include some of this, the pot right in here. I'm gonna use lots of water with it, that's not enough. Because, you know, I want to be able to make a lot of adjustments. I'm going to basically, and that comes down to where the fish is sitting. I really want the fish, I don't want to deal with a whole box that the fish is sitting on, so I want the fish right around here, and I'll just indicate what it's sitting on. And then going across, this is the fish tail. I see some negative space, and then part of this metal watering can, it comes up to about the tail. And then there's a flower that does this. There's a little bunch of flowers here. I go back again and just make sure that that's hitting where I want to. Then where those flowers are, up about the middle, that's where I see the chest of this planter. There's a planter, you know, it's a swan planter. And I'm gonna look at the space between these flowers and that arc that I'm seeing. In fact, the point of the arc comes about here, so it lines up with that and the fishtail. I'm going to move that in a little bit so it comes about there, and so then the head, which sort of echoes the arc in a little bit way. Just do that simple shape there, and then the wing, which comes up like that. So this whole shape is important, and sometimes it really helps to draw through a shape to get. I've drawn this a few times, so. I've never put it in my own paintings, but I've done a lot for students. It's been in a lot of still lifes. So as you can see, moved across the country a few times, and well, twice. And so it's had better days, but it'll work. So this is going to follow up and kind of mirror what that's doing. Most of this is in shadow. As I said, I've done this several times, but it's always a challenge. There's a lot of graceful turns in the design of this, and I just, you know, I find it pretty challenging to get them all working in symphony together. Okay, then, so that comes down, and then there's the indication of the box that it's sitting on right about here. Back to the wings, it stops. We have some white space there. So the ridge of the fish is here. And then this is going up to where its mouth and opening is. So I don't really need to finish the fish. I'm just trying to figure out where it sits, because that's important, you know, for the composition and how it relates to the object. So then here, there's a flower, some leaves, flower here. But more importantly, about here is where there's the urn starts, the middle. It's like almost like the bottom of the urn is a basin or a bowl. So I'm going to draw kind of a triangle, but more rounded than that. So and then cut off here, because at this point it has a ring around it. It really helps to break these vases down in some way, even though we don't see the whole thing. Right in the middle of this, I'm going to take this right up and down, okay, because that is where, you know, I see the middle of that. And the outside, I look at this head, it goes out about that far. So then I want to make sure if I don't have this part, I can grab some of that. Then I can measure from here to the center line out, make a dot, and that kind of tells me, okay, that is how wide that wants to be. This wants to be parallel to this. I want to mark, this is where I see the back of the opening and the front of the opening. Now I'm going to basically just go in at an angle and try to mirror each other. It's not the easiest thing to do, but you can always, and let's go down. Always, you know, you can check, oh, how is this against this? How is, you know, this against that? Well, at least there. You know, make sure that those things are staying the same. And then it goes behind this. And so I can see the way things are overlapping right here. The base is right here. And this is the lips of the fish right there. Just the way they overlap right there. This is where it is. Comes down and opens up, and that is this gaping mouth of this fish planter. The thing about flowers is, yeah, they can be complicated if you try to draw every little leaf. If you just gesture it, right, there's a shape of a flower right here. It's blue. I don't care what color it is right now. All I want to do is draw it, mark it in. There's another one, a little bit of a cluster here. And then it goes in the mouth. Now the mouth is pretty dark. I'm just going to tone it all in and make it dark. Why make it harder than that, right? You know what I'm going to do is make this mouth a little smaller, because what I've done is it's all mouth, it's no body. It's kind of like a piranha, but we don't want that. Now, I've never done made this mistake, but I've made his body too small. I've always done it the other way around. So I'm going to make the body larger. It doesn't have to be a lot larger, but basically a little will really help. Now, I realize that's pretty confusing, so what I'm going to do is make some gray and simplify this for you. Okay, so I made it gray to kind of help with this, and so I'm going to go back in and just cover up some of these messes a little bit, just so that it won't be so confusing. It's very easy to get rid of stuff with paint. So basically, it gives me a chance to get rid of some of these excess lines that are going to be confusing. I don't really need that center line. I don't need this gesture line, so why not exploit that? The swan really overlaps that, so I want to go back in and draw some lines that'll show that. Moving around a bit, so I'm going to basically put it here. This is where I want that to go. The neck is coming up and over. This is the head and the beak. So we have this come down and over and up. That is the wing. And then there's a little block under it that it's sitting on. First there's this stem, it's sort of like a thing that it's a brace, and then underneath that is a little block right in here. So basically it's helping me shuffle things around. I'm gonna go back with a dark, so that's better for the tail, being down there and being smaller, a lot smaller than the body. That's good. And there's a little bit of sort of direction on the fin. I'm going to go ahead and mark that in, that dark part. There's also just a little indication of this, where the scales stop, and then we have a little bit of a flipper here. It's just a subtle indication of a flipper. Okay, I'm gonna move on because I don't really want to finish that part, although there's other details that are important. I'll get to that. I'm gonna go back around and look at the tail, and then look at where the tail sits in relationship to the box. So the box is coming out here and then it comes down. A little bigger by really put it, just so that I'm more solid on this. It's a dark gray, about the same value as the background, but remember how light it looks, right? It's going to dry darker. So also the fish lips, right there, boom. It's easy to lose those, in the darkness of the shadow in the mouth. There's also more fish lips right here. And then it gets very dark inside. So I want to make sure that I see those, okay? All right, so this is my gray. I can also paint in some of the shapes that I'm seeing there. But I'm not trying to finish it, I'm just trying to get a better drawing as I do this. This is just regular old acrylic paint. I'm not using anything fancy yet. Okay, so now everything else. I'm looking into this area here. It's kind of mushy, it's kind of messy. So I've got the fish, I've got this shape between the fish and the tail. There's the negative space. So really, and the tail is a little bit more of an elegant, little narrower shape. So I can affect that. I can just take the gray, thinking of this as a line drawing right now, make that narrower. Also at the bottom, make that narrower and smaller. and we see there's a lot of flowers in there, so we don't see a lot of the opening, but they're basically, I'm gonna guess it's about like this. But what I do see is it curves, it goes up and it curves around. And we only see half of it, so that's means you don't want to worry about it too much. It just is going to go off the page. One thing I left blank, so I got this box ending, this box, and then there are flowers covering stuff. So, which means this lines up with the tail that I made it way too tall. This should be the top, right here, and then this is the bottom. So, let me fix this correction. Wipe this off. You know, you're gonna catch yourself doing stuff like that. You know, I was looking at it up and not, you know, across, comparing to other stuff. So what I want to do is I want the top of this to be line up with a little bit below the tail of the fish, which has gotten considerably smaller. And it's very common when you start with something, you know, you usually a lot of times you make a gesture and things are much bigger than they end up being. They get smaller as you work on it more. So, and that's okay. Then you make it, you know, basically as you get more detailed, usually things get smaller. And that's good. It kind of leaves you enough room for everything. Otherwise, if it went the other way, you would run out of room. So, you know, that's okay. Just be aware that that kind of thing happens. So basically what I'm seeing, so I've got this vase in here, and I know it's a little confusing. I'm just going to tell you what I'm seeing here. There's a negative space between the tail of the fish, this jug here, this box, the side of this crate that this bird is sitting on is going, I can see the shape of the crate. I mean, I see the negative shape between this vase and the fish, pretty clear as day. And so getting that right is really going to help my composition and my placement and everything. So I'm just paying close attention to that. And then this is where the fish is sitting, and I'm not worrying about getting the exact color right now, just enough value differences that I can see what's going on. And so this is right in here like that. Okay, now this is gonna come down just a little bit and then back up, and I have like it's full of flowers. So here's a flower right here, and it overlaps. This one here goes behind the tail of the fish. So I see that right there, and then there's this one, and there's another one above it. Those are the ones that are really in front. And then we see some green leaves and, you know, a little bit at the top of another one here. A little bit of green there. But we don't really see, there's a little bit of green there. What I can do is I can take this gray again and just brush in. We don't see much else. It's the petals of those that I'm seeing. It just kind of helps make the drawing easy. That works, because it's confusing. The space can be very confusing. Back here, behind this, there's something dark, and so I'm just going to put in a little bit of darkness. There's part of above this, there's part of a lantern that's dark. So if I just put in that dark, it really helps. It's going to help these stand out. They have a little bit of light on them, but mostly they're in shadow. There is the head of a dragon. I might leave that out. It's a little odd where it's placed in reference to the composition, but I could put it in. But right now I'm more interested in getting the background to work. There's a chalkboard right here, boom. And so that's a different color. There's also, it's back here underneath the fish, it's kind of dark. So if I make that darker, it's gonna help the fish stand out to be the right color.